Right, so hello everyone and welcome to the second of our 6-week health and wellness webinars by JD Corporate Wellness in conjunction with the ICBE Aviation Skillnet. Today our presenters are once again high performance and executive coaches Jason Kenny and Declan Dore from KD Corporate Wellness. Jason is a fitness and nutrition specialist, sports psychology coach, and has a degree in training and education. He is an active competitor, having represented Ireland abroad, winning several world, European and Irish titles. He is also a martial arts instructor with over 30 years experience. Declan is an inspirational trainer and executive coach. Having recovered from a life-threatening brain injury where he was told he would possibly never walk, talk or get the use of his face back again, Declan now teaches tools for mental wellness to survive and thrive in both your personal and work lives. Today's topic area is how to be more productive, and over the course of 20 minutes, Jason and Declan will guide us through how to establish a routine, avoid time wasters and energy vampires, getting the most from your day. The ground rules: Jason and Declan will present for 20 minutes, following up with a 10-minute Q&A. Everybody is muted, but we really do encourage you to submit comments or questions via the chat function. If you hover over your screen, you should see that function pop up on the top or the bottom of the screen. And without further delay, I'll hand you over to the trusted hands of JD Fitness. JD Corporate Wellness, apologies. Okay, lads, off you go.
Thanks very much, Owen. Much obliged. And hello to everyone and a happy Easter. I hope everyone had a very pleasant time and didn't overindulge too much in the chocolate. So I'm still trying to figure out how to make a chocolate omelette, but it hasn't really worked out too well. So anyway, listen, thank you again for everyone jumping on board. And this morning, we're just going to look at how to be more productive. Myself and Declan are going to go through it. And that's it, basically. So I suppose just to start off, we're just going to reflect back on what we did last week, which was on self-talk. And the power of self-talk, it can make you or break you. So I suppose the reason why we're referring back to this is that if you have in your own mind a lot of chaos, so many things to achieve and accomplish in one day, it can affect your productivity. And how you deal with those thoughts, those emotions, and how you put that to, I suppose, product and production throughout the day is very important to you. So the power of how you talk to yourself and what you do throughout the day is really, really important in terms of productivity as well. So being clear and being precise is one of the main objectives of today, and how to correlate that time that you have for yourself to be the most productive and to have that lovely work-life balance as well as a result afterwards. So just moving on there.
And I suppose just to elaborate on that, like what we love to share and give people is just 3 to 5 little tips from any trainings that we try and do, so people can implement them straight away and try and, you know, get some results, because really that's what we're all about in life is getting results, and whatever that be in your personal life or your professional life. And when it comes to the power of productivity, the most effective workers are ones who attempt tasks in short bursts of concentration rather than long bouts of meandering, according to a study published in Psychology Review. So if you think about that, I know for me, you know, years and years ago, I used to always get stuck in, and I'd be there for maybe 3 or 4 hours and I haven't had a drink of water or I haven't had anything to eat, and I think I'm being productive, but really what was happening to me was I was actually making myself unwell. And I was making myself unwell because I wasn't fueling the body. I wasn't fueling the engine of my car, which is me. So it's very, very important to look at it, whatever you are doing now in your business life or whatever it might be, especially now that we're at home, we're stuck indoors, we're trying to get things done on the computer. Are you stuck behind the computer for an hour, 2 or 3 hours before you actually get up and take a breath or get a drink of water, or even just take a break from the screen? You know, so it's important to look at things like that. And we're going to go through some little tools here today and how to actually break it down into short, you know, spells rather than long sections.
Yeah, and I suppose to reiterate on that as well, I mean, looking at productivity, people consider people who are productive extremely busy, but it's actually not really the case. It's about allocating the time to do something in a very precise manner. So you're setting a goal and objectives and being very clear in those throughout your day, rather than just doing a lot of stuff and a lot of stuff that's not really prioritizing the main things you need to actually get done and accomplish, which later on then builds up and builds up and builds up. And there's a study done, and it was done in the UK with over 2,000 companies back in 2016, and they were saying that on average people work 3 hours productively a day, and that's it. No matter how many hours in the day you're working, it's actually, I think it's actually 2 hours and 53 minutes they broke it exactly down to. And they did a further study in Auckland University as well, around the productivity and actually reduction in hours. Being more productive with your time and getting more precise with it is so important, you know.
So with the next one, the power, you know, of time blocking. Time blocking is key, especially to being productive. Like, this is something that we're very, very big believers on here in blocking out certain periods in your day, what you're actually going to do, and actually being focused on that time. And there's one thing that I've been talking about for years, and people laugh at me when I say it, but I call it the power of your ding dong or your ding-a-ling. And what that means is we all have a ding dong on us, which is our phone. And this can either work for you or work against you. And for me, what I reference is the power of your ding dong is when I sit down to do any projects or work on anything specifically, I'll always put on, what I do is my silent button on my phone. If you can possibly do that, turn it upside down, not facing up, because if you're working and your phone is beside you and all of a sudden this flash comes in, it completely distracts you from what you're supposed to be doing. And then you go off and your mind is thinking about either the message or the Facebook post or whatever it might be. It takes you off in that direction. So what I do is I simply just flick my phone up, put on my timer, and I'd have it on for 45 minutes. So I do 45-minute stints. So what happens is when I'm working on a project, I know what I'm working on. I turn my phone on silent, turn it upside down so I'm not trying to get distracted. Now, not everybody might be able to do this, but if you can also turn off any notifications that might be on your computer. So now you're getting completely laser focused in on what it is you're meant to be doing. You know there's a time that is going to go off, and when it goes off, you take a break, you step away, and you just recoup and reboot your body and mind. But what that does is it gets you laser focused, knowing that you've got 40 to 45 minutes to get this task to another level, or to get it completed, or to get it finished. So that's what the power of your ding dong or the power of your ding-a-ling is put that on, put a timer on in your phone, so it gives you a trigger to actually help you to move on and get a task completed.
Yeah, and preparation is key to all of that, and planning and preparing is all part of productivity. And this is a lot of stuff that you guys already know, and it's not something that's we're creating or reinventing. It's actually already been in existence. The fabulous quote here by Abraham Lincoln, I love it. It's give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. I think that's just sums it all up, really. You know, so it's about getting it all ready, having yourself organized, and then getting what you need to get done. I think this is really important, because what happens to us is we end up getting our time sucked out of us completely, which I think is really important, which leads on to, I suppose, the whole thing around the energy vampires and time suckers. Now, it sounds a bit dramatic, and maybe the picture is a little bit dramatic on it, but I think we all know what that means. And the dangers of that as well is that our time is very precious. And I remember many years ago when I was in school, it was probably my first year in secondary school, and one of the teachers had said to us, and it kind of left a profound thought in my mind. It was probably one of those life moments where you kind of go, hey, that makes a lot of sense. And he said, you know, the greatest gift you can give someone is your time. And I really, really believed what he had said, because when I thought about it deeply, I went, you know what, giving up time for somebody else, or doing something for someone, or they're doing something for you, it makes both respects in a two-way street. And when you give time to something, you need to really allocate that time to it, because if you don't, that person or that object or that particular subject isn't going to get covered correctly, you know. So, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, the energy vampires is a very, very interesting one if you think about it. You know, everybody has energy vampires and time suckers in their lives. And it's just a matter of being aware who is the energy vampires. You know, have you ever found yourself in a situation where you might be sitting down and someone maybe in your family, or could be someone in your work environment, they walk in the room and all of a sudden, you, without them even saying anything, you just feel like they're sucking the life energy out of you. They're just draining you without them even saying anything. And then the minute they do say something, it's like, oh no, here we go again. It's just being aware and being conscious of who does that to you, and how can you remove yourself from the situation. Like if you go back to our self-talk last week, we give, you know, tips and tools and techniques on how to do that when it comes to self-talk, but it also applies here to energy vampires and time suckers. It's just important to acknowledge they are in your life, and then it's just a matter of how can you remove yourself from that situation. And it might be only for 2 or 3 minutes, so you can just get yourself grounded and get yourself back into a good place.
Yeah, so I mean, looking at that from the whole point of view of the time waster and time sucker, as Declan spoke about there, and a lot of this time people aren't even aware of it, and it can be loved ones and people closer to you, and they don't realize that they're you know, encroaching on your time. Now, if we look at it from our current situation as what's happening globally, a lot of people are working from home. So you have the element of family members and kids and so on and so forth, and husbands, wives and partners and so on, coming in on top of you, or just because you're inside in the house and you're working in the office, they pop up to see how you're getting on, and before you know it, you're gone, you're distracted, you've moved away. Hence the study, as I referred to previously, that, you know, we're only working 3 hours productively throughout the day, because what actually happens, and when they did those studies, they realized that people were obviously getting up to go to the toilet, going to the canteen to cook something to eat, having conversations that weren't work related, all the normal stuff that we do on a normal human basis. The problem was the productivity side of things was obviously lacking. So this can happen in a home environment. It can happen in many different places, especially if there's a lot of distractions. So distraction is key, and this is going back to what Declan said earlier on about the power of the ding dong. So respect your time, and I cannot emphasize this enough. You've got to tell someone you're going to give them a certain amount of time, and that's a time you stick to regardless.
And it's like valuing your time and energy is important. Once you can value your time, people will start valuing it even more. And that is where, you know, you gotta, you know, the power of your ding dong and then boundary management. That's very, very important, because when you set your time up, and you need to let people know where your time is going, especially where you are now if you're working from home. It's important to let the people around you know that, okay, I need 2 hours here, please. You know, I don't need to be distracted if you don't mind. You know, you need to let people know this is your time, this is what you're doing, because otherwise they're just going to come in and top you. And, you know, when you work from home, people think sometimes that, Asher, you've loads of time. But it's important to acknowledge and respect your time, and how you do that is set up the boundary management. Let people know around you what you're doing and what you're actually putting your energy into.
Yeah, it's very important. And I suppose before COVID-19 and so on and so forth, if I had to work from home, and I know Declan does the same, I'd remove myself from the environment if I felt that, okay, this is going to be chaotic today. There's a lot of, maybe if the kids are off school and so on and so forth. And, you know, they're naturally going to come in, and of course they want to talk to you and so on. I'd remove myself and I'd go to maybe the local hotel, or I'd go somewhere where I can sit down and I can have a productive hour that I'm going to get all the things I need to get done. And I'd classify those in certain areas as well. So I'd put them in order of what amount of time I'm going to give them. So you'd have obviously the date, which is today, and then you'd have your classification, be it emails like correspondence, for example, or you could have like habit. So something that I'm doing, like maybe learning a language or whatever it is, something that you're doing, that you create those classifications and you prioritize those throughout the day. And then you have a look at the amount of time you're going to allocate to those. Like Declan said, you give 45 minutes to your either conference call, to your clients, or whatever it is you want to give them. And your time is respected. They know that they have to get what they need to get done within that particular time because you have to move on. And it's more productive. You're removing those temptations as well to get up and just to get distracted and to deal with something that's going on. So it's really important, all that sort of stuff. So you're removing yourself from those situations. And also, what's really important as well with this is that just because you're doing it from home and you have these distractions, what you can do is you can put a few things in place and have yourself ready. So I always have the whole 2 steps ahead approach, where you put in place something. Say, for example, I'm using kids here. It's I'm making it sound like the children are terrible, but they're not. But like you give them something, obviously a distraction for them, so it's something that they can sit, that they can do, and they can be put in place, and they can relax, and they can enjoy themselves and do whatever, so they're not encroaching on your space. So try and work out your time so that it's working in with other people who are doing things themselves as well, because otherwise what happens is it becomes chaotic. And deleting the toxic environment, I think that's a really powerful one. Do you want to talk on that?
Yeah, so deleting the toxic environment, sometimes just what I've done even of late is, and again, you might be able to do that at the moment, if you are working from home and there's stuff happening, I'll sometimes just sit into my car and just go a small bit up the road, bring my diary, and I'll just sit in my car for, it could be half an hour to 45 minutes again, and I'll work there in my car. Because of the current situation, there's nowhere you can go at the moment. So there's another thing to do, is try and remove yourself. Sometimes you need a bit of headspace, because we're all getting very, I suppose, claustrophobic at the moment, where we're all indoors and it's hard to actually get stuff done and completed. And it might be just a case where you need to remove yourself just for half an hour to an hour, sit in your car, just drive a few 100 yards up the road somewhere, pull in, and just work from there. Do something, just take some, deep breaths, release what might be going on for you, and get back and get focused on what it is you're meant to be doing. So Owen has just put up there a questionnaire, if you don't mind. What stops you from being productive, if you think about it? Is it your family, friends, work colleagues? Is it social media? Not enough time in a day? Or is it your environment? So out of those, which one do you feel stops you from being productive? So you might just have to tick on whichever one you feel it is, and Owen will give us the results there then.
Great. I won't give you the results yet because it's changing every time people press it, so quite varied.
Okay.
Friends and family seem to be blamed more than anything else. It's followed by social media.
I don't feel so bad, so.
No, I'll end it now and I'll share it with you, just because it's quite interesting. Tell me if you can see that.
Oh, okay. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting friends,
okay.
Family, work colleagues. Yeah.
Interesting.
So again, it just comes back to your managing your time and setting up your boundaries, and it's key. And if you can take anything from this training, is to set up your boundaries. It's so important. And it's not being negative or being mean when you set up your boundaries. It's respecting your time. And the more you do that, and the more you instill that into those around you, the more they'll start respecting your time, actually. So give it a go. So go for that one.
Yeah, so look, here are some of the ones we've kind of isolated, and it's interesting with the poll there that the second one on the list was social media and so on and so forth. So social media is one of the greater areas. We have a tendency to kind of fritter off, I suppose, into another world, or to start looking at what's going on outside of our day, our job, or if someone is annoying us in work or whatever it is, we decide to kind of have a look at it. Also, the problem with it is like Declan mentioned earlier on, is the notifications, and they're popping up. So if you're on your phone and you're trying to do a little bit of work from your phone, because we all use it nowadays, I mean, you get your emails on your phone, you're taking your calls on your phone, you can search the web on your phone. So it pretty much is a mobile office. The dangers with that is if you're relying on it and someone texts you in the midst of it, someone's social media message pops up in the middle of it, you start looking on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all these feeds are coming in and your notifications are running through, that becomes toxic. And it pulls you off into a completely different channel than where you need to be. And it's something that, again, goes back to the whole ding dong and allowing yourself time. If you want to do it, allow yourself time to do it in a position that, you know, you're comfortable and it's your free time that you can, you know, you don't have to worry about being on it or doing it, you know. So
just speaking about time, I know we're nearly out of time here now at the moment, so we'll just fly through these last ones, and it's respecting your time, the friend temptation. So one thing to just be aware of is we all have friends in our lives where they'll either ring us and you know when the phone rings, oh my God, this is going to be an hour call or 2 hour call or whatever it might be. You just know the minute they're ringing you. The one thing I do when that happens with me and my friends is the minute I answer, go, hi, we'll use Jason as an example. I go, hi Jason. Jason, I've only got 5 minutes because I have to get on another call here with such and such, or I've got a Skype call, or I've got something on. You've got to set up the situation from the start so you can actually keep yourself focused, and or maybe say, I can ring you back later on. Is that okay, Jason? You know, it's about setting that up. So we're just going to fly through these here now because we're just conscious our 20 minutes is nearly up.
Yeah, and again, I suppose the whole perfectionist thing is really I suppose we all can fall into this category. I know I'm guilty of it myself, and wanting to get everything 100% correct straight off the bat. Sometimes it just means just pulling yourself away from these situations and just kind of coming back to it as well. Like if you're going to pay all your attentions into getting it done 100% right all of the time, it's going to really eat you up. You're not going to get your bits and pieces done. You're going to have that whole I suppose that the whole deadline thing is obviously important, but if you have built yourself up, if you have planned and put your steps in place along the way and allocated the time to what you need to get done, it's not an immediate rush at the very end. But also what it can help you to do is actually to allocate a little bit and to start to give out some of the responsibility and allocate some of that time to other people, other players that are involved. It's no point you just simply taking it all on board yourself. And you know, Steve Jobs was famous for, he used to always say that, you know, I'm going to hire somebody that doesn't do my job or can do what I can do, but I want to hire someone who's better at me doing something else so that I can allocate the time there for them to do that and bring it together. If we become the perfectionist, which we all are, then it becomes an issue off the bat.
And the next one then is number 4 is the do-it-yourself research. So the do-it-yourself research, it's important that you try and realize what you're good at and focus in and laser in on what you're good at and try and delegate out what you know you're not good at. You know, so instead of trying to be an expert in everything, try and be an expert in 1 or 2 things that you know you enjoy, you're passionate about, and you feel really good about doing it, and then delegate it off to the other. There's a lot more depth we can go into in these, but we're just, again, we're conscious of time here.
Yeah. So I suppose, again, it's just, look, we get caught in all of these things, and it becomes like a vortex. I mean, and it is a lovely way of describing it. It's a crippling time vortex. And, you know, we get all these lists and we put all these things together, and we're trying our whole to try and get this together into a point where everything is flowing nicely. But in the midst of it all, it turns into some sort of chaos. And the most important tasks that we need to get done aren't getting done. Because as we spoke earlier on, the distractions from family to social media to all the things that are happening around us, even our environment, which actually from the poll, I was quite interested to see that the poll had suggested the environment was probably on the lower end of it. But the environment can be a huge player in this game as well. And it can be something that, like, say for example, we're doing even the likes of like this web talk. For us, it's about, like, we could sit here and, you know, all jokes aside, you could be sitting in your underwear or you could be sitting whatever, it doesn't matter, because all you're seeing is the head shots. But for us, it's important about you come to the environment, you know, you're dressed, you're shaved, you're clean, you're ready, prepared. It makes you feel that you're actually part of it. You're creating an environment that's professional, creating an environment that's real, and that you can relate to it and that you can actually act it. You know, if you go to the gym and you go in a pair of jeans and so on and so forth, then, you know, you don't feel like you're ready to work out. Whereas you put on a pair of runners, you put on a pair of shorts, you know, t-shirt, and then you go into the gym, you actually feel like you want to actually work out. So it's really important to create that environment for yourself as well.
So yeah, that's it. We just want to respect your time here as well. So thank you all so much. I think, Owen, we'll hand it back to you, because there's so much we could go on about here when it comes to this topic.
Great, yeah, that is a masterclass in 20 minutes. I particularly like the idea of training, almost, you know, you have to train yourself, but also you have to train other people, so that they know when you're having these productive spells, and that, you know, so if it's a 40-minute or a 70-minute spell, that outside of that, but while they're in that zone, that you know, you should be free from distractions, rather than having somebody who contacts you every 5 minutes when they think of a task, and to collate them all. So it's the understanding of training other people. Can I ask and just get your opinions on just measuring productivity, and any thoughts that you have on that? Either how to measure it or how to think about measuring it.
When it comes to certain jobs that you're working on, is it? Or
yeah, or even you know, it's even the importance of measuring it so that you know whether you've been productive or not, rather than just getting through the week.
See, I think that comes back to what it is you have to get done, and prioritizing what you need to get done, and not moving on, if you can, to the next task, because the key component is, once you tick off or cross off what you've done, that even fuels you with good positive energy, because, okay, I've got something done. And then move on to the next thing. It's looking at that and tracking that, and that's where it comes back to the time blocking. So when you're looking at whatever you want to get completed and get done, if you can go, okay, I need to get this done in 45 minutes. Now, it doesn't always happen, of course, but if you can get yourself into that mindset of, okay, I have to complete this task at a certain time, it motivates you to actually get it done and complete it. And that's a great way, I find, in measuring it.
Great. Actually, related to that, there's the questions come through. What advice would you give to people on being very self-critical? For example, you feel you should be 100% productive when working from home, and can feel quite demoralized when the day ends and you've only achieved 50% of what you planned on doing.
Do you want to go for that?
Yeah. I suppose that for myself, from my own personal, what I do is, and I can totally relate to that question. The problem is what it is that you've got to set a task for yourself in terms of what that goal is you want to achieve. If you over task it or over set that goal, then you're only going to get 50% of that achieved. So to try and set something small, and what I try to do is I try to line the dots. So I'll try to do something to, we set a greater goal. I'll try and put a few things in between that all lines up to it eventually, so it actually gets completed. So the other thing is also allow your time extra rather than less. And I know myself and Declan and I've done this in the past. So if you're going to be late, you're not sure how traffic is going to be. This is just traffic one as an example. You can't judge it. So if I'm going to be there at 10 o'clock, I'm just going to say, look, I'm going to be there at 10:30. So I know I've given myself extra time regardless to get that achieved. So to be productive and to not feel like you haven't achieved something, what you've achieved in that period of time is going to lead on to the final result of achieving the ultimate goal in itself.
Can I just go on one more with that, Owen, if you don't mind?
Please do.
Just when it comes to the overwhelm of stuff, because I get it, like I totally get it. Most people have a list of things to do, okay? A list of things to do. And this is something I've created. I've actually created a one-page productivity sheet, and I've even created a diary that people all over the world now buy from Amazon, because I just love productivity. I just love, because I was so unproductive before, I realized how can I become more productive? And it's breaking it down to, when you have your list, you need to look at it and go, what's the 3 things out of this list I'm going to complete today? Not what's the 5 or the 6 or the 10. It's the 3 things. So what happens at the end of the day is you've already set your day up where, okay, I know I have 3 things to complete. And when the end of the day comes, you look at the 3 things and hopefully you've got the 3 things done rather than being overwhelmed by the list. And then you move the list forward to the next day and you pick your 3 out and you pick your 3 out. And if anybody wants this, they just need to email, like we'll happily give you a free. You just need to email info@kdcorporatewellness.com and we'll email you the 1-page productivity sheet. Print it out, try it, it works, because it just breaks it down into 1 page of your things to do, then takes that things to do, put it into 3 things to do, and then you have a time blocking section where you block out your time on how you're going to get those tasks completed. So that would be another way just to add to it.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, that idea of giving a little bit extra time to something rather than not being realistic about it, because that can be quite demoralizing. Yeah. Final question, just in terms of tips on rewarding yourself. So we're all stimulus response people, and if you do a good blast of good productive work, any suggestions on what we should reward ourselves with, especially now that we're in the unfamiliar home setting? And don't say 4 hours of Netflix.
Webinars. Yeah, do you know what? I suppose the most important thing is when you're productive, you allow yourself more time, obviously, to the other end of it. That's what you find. A lot of people who are very productive have allocated their time correctly, so they allow themselves time to do other things in the end. So it goes back to what we said initially. To start being productive doesn't mean that you're busy. It means that you're getting what you need to get done in a particular period of time. As a reward, I mean, at the end of the day, it really comes down to an individual. For me, it's just spending time with family. It's spending time getting outside. If that luxury is available to people, by all means. Certainly, and I've often said this to Declan, sometimes I'll just sit in front of Netflix and just to do something that's completely brain numbing, that's outside of the work, outside of something that, it's not even real world, but it takes you off into a completely different area, and it just distracts you because you need that distraction. You need to be pulled away from it, because especially if you're an entrepreneur or if you're self-employed or anything to that effect, your mind is constantly switched on. And it goes back to that whole approach where, you have the business athlete versus the athlete, if you look at it that way. I love the analogy of the two. And what happens is that the business person is switched on 75 to 85% of the time. Go, go, go. The person who's entrepreneurial. Whereas the athlete, their competition time is really only about 5%. So that's when they're really switched on. Up to that, it's all about preparing, planning, looking at themselves and how they can make things right, resting, recovering, spending time with themselves, a little bit of self-care and a bit of self-love. So it's all about that. It's about rewarding yourself with something small, something that you really enjoy, a bit of absolutely brain-numbing stuff that, has nothing to do with the business, nothing to do with work. That's what I would suggest. That's what you reward yourself with.
Great. Okay, there's no further questions. We'll let people get on to being productive for the week. I think a lot of those tips should set us up very nicely. And next week, we'll be back to the normal Monday slot. We only switched Tuesday because of Bank Holiday Monday this week. The video and slides from today will be uploaded to the ICBE website later on. And finally, many thanks to our presenters, Jason and Declan, and to everyone who dialed in today. And look forward to seeing you all next Monday. Thank you very much.
Thanks a million.
See ya.
Bye.
Okay, bye.